You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein On Gelt Show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein On Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have back on the Goldstein on Gelt show Ryan McKenzie, who is a multi-decade web entrepreneur based in Vancouver, but his presence can be heard all over the internet through infobarrel.com. Ryan, a pleasure to have you back.
Pleasure to be back, Doug.
I'd like to focus a little bit on the niche of the internet that you specialize in, which is information. There's tons of stuff on the internet, but a lot of it, quite frankly, is garbage. How have you helped to develop the web such that we're able to find a little bit of quality information?
Well, over the years, we've been trying to produce this crowdsourced website where users come together to create content which is designed to be consumed by readers. Our personal goal from the very beginning was to create content that either educated people or helped them solve a problem. Obviously, when you start out in a market like that, you might not necessarily have a very good idea of what type of speed bumps you're going to encounter over the course, of the project. And one of the biggest hurdles we had to overcome was how do you create content on a mass scale that is quality. It teaches people stuff, and it satisfies all the credentials that Google sees as being quality content as well.
Let's break that up actually into the parts of what you just said, because you said you wanted to educate people or solve a problem, which sounds like phenomenal, right? That's what we all want the internet to be about. But there seems to be this huge pressure from these sources that give bad information. How have you then dealt with separating between good writers and bad writers through your crowdsourcing model?
Well, first of all, we've from the very beginning we've always had human editorial control. So all the content on our particular site goes through a queue where humans will evaluate it and make sure it meets certain standards. Initially, we thought that was adequate, but over time we started as Google released specific updates that were affecting good and bad websites across the internet. We started to come up with more specific, not algorithms, but
non-human systems.
Yeah, like non-human systems that can identify specific problems that over the course of 100,000 articles could start to cause problems on a website.
Mm-hmm. So when obviously Google's very important for you because they've got to find you, but let's say, how is it that you can make sure that they find you? In the old school, it used to be, put a lot of keywords into an article, but is that what it's all about today?
I mean, obviously you still want to have your keywords in there to a certain extent, more than a couple percent, and it starts to look very written for a computer as opposed to written for a human. So what we like to encourage our users to do is use semantic keywords. So when Google analyzes an article, they use a technique called latent semantic analysis or indexing. I can't speak English today. And what that does is it actually, so like say you have the word video games in your article, it would be expected that you would also use the word gaming and console and other synonyms that are essentially the same word, right? When something's written for a computer or for a search engine, typically what you'd see is the one keyword repeated over and over and over again, and the synonyms wouldn't exist, which is a major sign that somebody's basically trying to game the system, because in normal human writing, you're going to be using synonyms just because it doesn't sounds very robotic when you just use the same word repeatedly.
Don't they say that Google is actually trying to use some sort of artificial intelligence to really determine if an article is authored by a human being and therefore has original value?
I think a lot of that would have to do with that LSI, LSA stuff I was just talking about. I'm sure they have some pretty intense algorithms and techniques for detecting non-human content.
So if that's the case, that would presumably help a website like InfoBarrel, because hopefully it's all human content. People are actually writing original material.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. I mean, there's other things that we're doing as well on top of the things I've outlined previously, but I would definitely hope so.
All right. We are talking with Ryan McKenzie, who is the head of a company called Infobarrel.com. He's also a repeat guest on Goldstein on Gelt. If you missed that previous interview, check it out at goldsteinongelt.com, or simply go to YouTube and look up Goldstein on Gelt. You'll find all of our interviews there. Ryan's been talking to us a little bit about how his company, or how people can provide information to the internet. So if you're a writer and you wanted to actually write an article, you could do it through a website like InfoBarrel if you wanted to participate there. So let's look at it from the other side. And Ryan, as you know, this is a personal finance show. So let's say that you are a regular guy and you're looking to get advice about managing your portfolio. Why would you choose to get information or ideas from a site which is crowdsourced, as opposed to, let's say, going to CNN or a CNBC or Fox Money?
I think at the end of the day, regardless of what you're looking at, whether it's CNN or Fox, you really need to look at who's writing the article. You might not know the person that's writing the article, but if they're providing sources and they're backing up what they're saying with valid sources, and they're linking to content that is on sites that are to be trusted, I think you just, at the end of the day, you need to understand how to tell whether or not the writer is a high quality writer or is trustworthy versus a non-trustworthy writer. And I think that's something that comes with experience. A lot of the times Google's getting better at providing the results that are more relevant and more trustworthy. But at the end of the day, I think it's still up to the reader to read multiple sources before they make a decision on something as sensitive as their finances, Well,
I was hoping that she would say they could just go to InfoBarrel and look up Doug Goldstein, who's a regular columnist there, and they could trust everything that they read up.
I thought that was just common knowledge.
Oh. All right, well, for those of you who don't know, this is, I guess, as by way of disclaimer, I have to share that not only am I a friend of Ryan's, but also I do participate vigorously on InfoBarrel. I've been probably for well over a year, I've been writing a column, and I post it there, and I've tried to give good advice, and as an author, I've tried to position myself so that people want to come back and over and over again say, what's Doug Goldstein writing today? And I think that's the model for people who participate in InfoBarrel. That was just a statement, not a question. But okay, let's go back to the Google question, because I think that's really what's important for people who want to get involved in any sort of online business, is to understand the changing world of Google. If someone wants to get involved, let's say as in article writing or in any web business, how is he supposed to stay up to date with all the changes in Google so that he'll always rank well?
Well, I think if somebody's starting out in the business or in SEO, for example, I think the first thing they need to do is familiarize themselves with Google's webmaster guidelines. I mean, the biggest mistake people make are breaking rules. So like link schemes, keyword density issues, linking to low quality pages. Second of all, I would probably subscribe to Matt Cutts. He's the head of Google's spam team. Subscribe to him on Twitter, subscribe to his YouTube channel. His YouTube channel is youtube.com/user/Matt Cutts, and that's spelled MattCutts. There's a lot of gray area stuff, and it's really nice because he'll make videos and he'll basically talk about each specific issue and trying to give you a better idea on whether or not you should be doing it. And finally, I would recommend reading the SEOmoz.org blog. It's updated pretty frequently, daily, and there's a number of different writers on there that have fantastic ideas between preventing your site from getting penalized, getting your site out of a penalty, as well as proper ways to go about building links, improving your rankings, etc. So that's where I would personally start out if I was kind of getting into the market. I mean, if you want to be doing SEO on an ongoing basis, it's not something you can just learn for a week and then forget it. It's one of those things that if you want to be on top of the game, you definitely need to keep up with the constant nuances and changes that are happening in the market.
And do you think it only applies to the search engine Google, or should people actually think about the other ones whose names?
Like Bing and Yahoo, I mean, you're going to get a bit of traffic from them, but I mean, from my personal experience, 90% of your traffic in terms of search engines is going to come from Google. A lot of the same principles that you would apply to Google apply to Bing. At the end of the day, in my opinion, creating amazing content, networking with people in your industry, and having a social media presence are probably going to go a lot further than doing the nitty-gritty grind and going from blog to blog. If you can drop a guest post to try to get a backlink.
And what about being a prolific writer? Just people who produce, is that actually helpful?
A radio show, but having no listeners. Like if you could have the best radio
show. Gotta watch it, buddy.
You could have the best radio show in the world, but if nobody knows about your radio station, nobody's going to listen, right? So it's just like any other business as far as I'm concerned. You still need to get out there and do your networking with people that are, in your vertical. And the more networked you are, the better opportunities you're going to have to succeed, because not only are you friends with the other people in the industry, it makes it easier to do guest posts on these prolific sites. You can be like, hey, can you take a look at this article? If you like it, share it for me on Facebook, and you get, these people have the same audience or similar audiences to you, and it makes it easier to get your content exposed. So if you're a prolific writer and you have friends, it's a lot better than being a prolific writer who doesn't have anybody to share with, right?
All right, that sounds like very sage advice. We've been talking to Ryan McKenzie, who is a web entrepreneur. He's based out of Canada. I keep saying that because we actually don't speak to that many Canadians on the Goldstein on Gelt show. And he's also the director of infobarrel.com. Ryan, just in the last few seconds, if people want to follow your work or just learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to keep
They can either take a peek over at our gigantic crowdsource website at http://www.infobarrel.com, or they can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter account is Rye McKenzie. That's RYEMCKENZIE or ZIE. I'm not sure how you guys say it over there.
All right. Ryan McKenzie with a Z or a Z at the end. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.